Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Designing for Oomph iPhone. Just want to do a quick check, see if everyone can hear me. I have my director, Erica, here. She'll be helping me with any questions along the way as I navigate through all this content. So it looks like all good, ready to go. All right. All right. So yes, this is the webinar for designing for iPhone. Oomph will be hopefully today launched on the App Store, so you'll be able to download the Oomph app for your iPhone. Also, starting today, you'll be able to build apps for iPhone, which is very exciting. So this is what this webinar is all about. We'll show you a little bit what it's like designing for iPhone using the Oomph platform and how to go about navigating through all that. So my name's Jack. I've been involved and experienced with the Oomph platform for over 2 years now. So as far as iPad goes, that's a long time. Yes, so I've also been involved in the creation of the UI and UX for iOS 7, both iPad and iPhone, with little things like the icons and how it all works with the library and whatnot. So hopefully I'm pretty certified to be teaching you something exciting and new today. So we're going to go over a few things. Let me tell you about that. We're going to go through some iPhone statistics and some insights. We're going to go through some examples of some content already made on iPhone, Oomph for iPhone. We're going to go through some guidelines for designing content for iPhone. Before I do that, I just want to do another check for audio. Getting a Tony Redhead, not getting any audio. I can confirm that others are getting audio, Tony, so it may be something on your end. If that's the only person, then I'll just continue on until that gets sorted. Tony, Erica will help you figure that one out. And then once all that is done, we are going to give you an offer, special Oomph offer, a little bundle to help you create apps, and I'll show you what it's all about once we're done going through the content. And then after that, we'll finish with some Q&A time. So if you have any questions that build up over the webinar, load them up into the little questions panel in the webinar interface, and I'll get to answering them when the time comes. So let's get into it. I'd like to show you all about that now. We thought it might be fun to do a little live poll, see where people are at with how they're thinking iPhone, what kind of content it's good for, how they use it, etc. So there is a quick poll set up. So just take 5 seconds to click one of those. And, oh, well, okay. So we have 11% communication, 0% entertainment, 22% utility, and 67% all of the above. So that's some pretty interesting figures. It looks like the majority of people, I would probably have to agree. I do use my phone for just about everything, and I think with the statistics that we're about to show you, so do a lot of people. It seems to be the sort of the gateway to all sort of media experiences. So why universal apps? consumers now own multiple devices, and it's not just one or the other, but we're finding through the statistics that people are moving throughout them. So maybe one part of the day they're using their iPad maybe at home, and then on their commute they're using the iPhone. And then you might find that some content is better on the iPhone, say like I don't know, an image gallery, and then on the iPad you'd have some supporting long form content. So we're finding that people also use their iPad and their iPhone together, multiple screens at the same time. So that's why we've created the Oomph for iPad and the Oomph for iPhone, so our users can not only have their content available to all their customers, but they can also have content that's tailored towards the iPad or towards the iPhone that will be more engaging for the user. Some of you may already know, but our Cosmopolitan magazine, or ours, one of our clients' magazines, Cosmopolitan magazine, has recently been launched for magazine just over 2 weeks ago, and it has some great response, and we'd like to share that with you now, so you can kind of get an idea of what it might be like in your case. So, as you can see, 700,000 page views, which is just phenomenal for 2 weeks. It was in the editor's choice on the App Store, 10,000 installs, and I guess the most relevant figure in this case is 75% of the sessions are happening on iPhone. So for this demographic, their users are consuming most of the time on the iPhone, so it's been extremely successful for them, and we've made it happen through the Oomph platform on iPhone. So now obviously you can grab your content, you can use the Oomph platform that you know, that you're familiar with, put it on the iPhone and test the success of your content for yourselves. And here we have some smartphone insights. On the left here in the left graph, we can see since 2009, tablets have just been taking off like crazy until now, into 2012, as the graph goes. But we can see in the graph to the right, smartphones have increased exponentially, and that is our MIDI interactions with the smartphone. So this is kind of important for a couple of reasons. Combining it with some of the stats we learned before, we found that people are using their iPhones first, so that'll be their first interaction with some sort of media, interactive, you know, the web, the App Store, apps, all that kind of thing. The iPhone is most often the first place they'll go. So it makes sense, obviously, to have your content available at that source. And you might find that that also leads to your iPhone leading on to people downloading the same content or compatible content on the iPad as well. So now we're going to go through a couple examples of Oomph for iOS 7. Going to have a look at the Cosmopolitan magazine, like we were talking before. We'll also look at Madweek, and we'll look at our app, the Oomph Viewer. So bear with me for 1 second while I set this all up. I have a few things going at once here. So you can see this is our iPhone content. This is now in the 4-inch display. It's as you can see, it's just like what you know on the iPad. We have video layers, which is quite cool. And you'll notice if you install this on your iPhone, if you haven't already, I encourage that you do. It's just a whole new experience to see such animation and interactivity on the iPhone. It has a whole new feel to it, and obviously a whole new purpose. So it's quite interesting to explore that space and see what things like this do, and obviously try and create something for yourself. So on the cover here we have a nice VIPS to flick through cover content. We have the search widget, so you can tap little hotspots here and bring up a pre-filled search. And I'll use that now to direct to some more content. So here we also have a little page swap. Opens up here, and inside our page swap we have a VIPS, which is quite cool. Obviously it works quite well on the iPhone. Here we have another example of a page swap in the form of a quiz. So we have this little button here, and we can kind of go down this decision tree. This one in particular is about if you should throw your clothes away or not. So you go through, you answer a bunch of questions, and that'll eventually lead you to help you decide what to do in this case. So that's a cool use of a page swap there, obviously in the iPhone format. And hopefully you guys can get this one, but this one is a very nice example of Oomph animations using page layers to animate a title in, and which on the iPhone is just so smooth. You really don't get anything quite like it. I think with the higher processing powers of the iPhone 5, it just looks really nice. I'll also show you a couple cool features in Madweek. So again, we have some really complex object animations happening here, all supported on the iPhone. We have some nice clouds moving in. They'll animate on repeat, which looks really nice. And hopefully this kind of really engages your users and makes your content stand out. We have tall pages, card flips, and we have an interactive map here with multiple locations inside. We have a long VIPS, inside of which we can put things like custom HTML. So in here we have some notes that you can create. We also, of course, support a Twitter feed and share Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account on my simulator, but as you can see behind there, you get the idea. So there's a lot of, as you can see, already a lot of really cool content has been created for iPhone, which kind of leads into the question, what exactly is supported on iPhone? I'll be more happy to show you. So the team, our development team, has just done an amazing job to just about get every Oomph feature that there is and have it work on iPhone. So we have all the slideshows, web links, emails, video layers, Oomph animations, page swaps, flipbooks, objects, animated images, audio player, Twitter, web clips, voice control even, maps as you saw, calendar events, all of these features working perfectly, which is really cool to use inside the iOS 7 framework. What we don't currently have working is one, for example, is the pop-up widget. This is more than likely never going to be available for iPhone as we know it on the iPad, because it is an iPad exclusive feature. You won't ever really see a pop-up feature anywhere on iPhone, not just on Oomph. That being said, there's no reason why we couldn't develop our own one if the need did arise or the demand was there. As you saw, we had a HTML notes widget before, which you can do. And then also the timer widget is not supported. But everything else you see and use currently for your iPad apps, you can use on the iPhone. So designing for content for iPhone. The first thing really most people would consider when designing content for iPhone is, well, you know, how do we size this stuff? With Oomph, you're able to create content for multiple device screen sizes. So you can just use the one bundle. You don't have to create something for each device. All you need to do is create the one bundle, just like you create the iPad bundle, and you can stick it on the iPhone, your iPhone app, and that'll display for iPhone 3.5 and 4-inch devices. And within that, there's 5 or 6 different devices. So I've put together a little demonstration to show you how that would work, and I'm going to also set up my reflector app here so I can have 2 screens going on at the same time. So let me just set it up now for you. So as you can see here on my right-hand side of the screen, I'm using Apple's iOS simulator. The cool thing about this is you don't have to have every device to be able to test on them. Inbuilt is a handy little feature, which I'll show you here, you can actually change your device size. So if you use Oomph Editor, you'll be familiar with the simulator because obviously you can test your content on the iPad simulator. You can also do it for the iPhone. So under hardware device, you'll have a list of options that you can use. Obviously, the default when you use Oomph Editor is the iPad. But what we want to test today is the iPhone Retina and the iPhone Retina 3.5-inch and the 4-inch. So I'll change this one to the 3.5-inch so we can compare. And this will just take a couple seconds to load up. So basically, the whole point of this exercise is to compare how content differs from one device to the next. Like I said, we don't need to create two different bundles for two different devices. Instead, use the same for each. So I'll show you how that works on two different devices here. So on my left-hand side, I have a 4-inch device here, and on my right-hand side, I have the 3.4-inch device. Now, as you can see, the app here has scaled the content to fit, so we don't have any letterboxing issues here. What we do have, how Oomph figures this out, is it takes this content on the left and it makes it a tall page. So we can see here we have a slight scrollable area on the 3.5-inch. And for the 4-inch device, we have a snap page. So when designing iPhone content, you want to be aware of this scrollable area. You want to be aware that any users on a 3.5-inch, and by the way, from our initial sort of feedback, people on a 3.5-inch, I think, represent lower than a 20%. So they are there. That is not as common. So if you want to consider your 3.5-inch device users, be aware of a few things here. So the first is you want to keep all sort of interactive content in this area that is shown on the 3.5-inch device area. It might not be wise to have them on this lower scroll area. You might have users missing the content, although this is not going to be a problem on a tall page, as users will be scrolling down content anyway, so they're likely not to miss anything. So you might want to keep also your page indicators or any sort of visual cues in that area as well, that I've shown in that more saturated green. And that's basically it. Those are the only two really factors that you need to consider to have sort of a compatible design working for all users. So this is just to display what will happen if you have a tall page. So again, users on the 3.5-inch display, it'll cut off at that solid orange line, but then we can just continue on to a tall page. So just like the iPad, Oomph has that capability to create a smooth scrolling area. And just like when the iPad went Retina, a lot of our competitors really struggled with changing resolutions. In this case, it was a changing pixel density. But of course, with Oomph, we're working with PDFs most of the time. So with that, again, we're getting scaled up content that is vector, and it's going to show crisp and beautiful. It also supports, of course, HTML, which will also do the same thing. So if there's any future devices Apple want to create, maybe they're going to follow the phablet trend or something, But rest assured knowing that Oomph easily can handle this content. What I've created here is content that is 727 by 1290, which doesn't currently exist at all. But just to demonstrate that within the ratio of the 3.5 or the 4-inch, the iPhone, the Oomph platform can handle it. So there's also the issue of handling content from the iPad to the iPhone. It does differ, obviously, in the same way that you should handle your content differently from print to iPad. You should also handle your content differently from iPad to iPhone or print to iPhone. So I'll go through a couple of examples and show you how that is. How that works. So once again, let me set that up for you. So what I have here is iPad content and iPhone content side by side. And we'll see how that differs. So we have our two covers here, our iPad and our iPhone for Mad Week. Obviously, all the functionality, the animation is the same. The only difference here is for the iPhone version, I've wanted this to be usable on the 3.5-inch. So what I've done is I've just left a bit of a white space at the bottom of the design there, you can see, for the iPhone. And I should also note that porting iPad content to the iPhone is actually really simple. Because all the Oomph constructs work the same, in this case it's just a bit of a layout change. Essentially, because the iPhone 5 resolution is so high, I can keep it pretty similar with my animations with the XY positioning and so on. It's just a little bit skinnier. So this is a speaker page in the Madweek apps. So you can see, obviously, I've handled content differently here as well. On the iPad, you have luxury of the space. So in here, I have sort of two columns, one for my buttons and one for my column of text. On the iPhone, it's kind of nice to do this on the iPhone. You sort of have that limitations that designers kind of want sometimes, whereas you only have the option really of going up and down. You can create columns, but you don't have that much space to do so. So more times often than not, you're making a design that's one thing on top of another, similar to like a responsive web page. So instead, I just have my image and text on top of each other, and I have my buttons, just like you saw before. So you can see how this design differs. So what they've done here is quite interesting. Obviously, on the iPhone, they have a problem of, okay, we're not going to be able to fit all this content that's on our iPad edition and likely on their print edition onto the small device. The font is just not going to be legible. You know, what are we going to do in this situation? So quite cleverly, what they've done for their content is they've actually separated it into different slides, so you take in one at a time, which works quite well. It's actually quite a cool effect with the transparent content sliding over the cover. This enables the user to kind of take in one thing at a time, you know, nice and bite-sized, and obviously they're engaging with the content by sliding up. So hopefully the idea is they'll also be more aware of it too. So in this one, in their print edition, what their solution was, obviously they have a page size restriction in print. So what they've done is they've just put their products over 2 pages, probably side by side in the spread. And on the iPhone, what they've done instead is they've created a little page swap. So instead of pages going across, they're isolating each product and calling them out for their website and their price point. So again, they've altered their content from iPad to iPhone. And I suppose with anything interactive, you have the ability to let the users reveal content for themselves, which is what they've done here. So in this case, instead of fitting it all in the one page, they've created multiple pages going down. And they've created a long scrolling IPS, so the user can browse their content really nice and large, so they can see all those details. And then they've created just one page going down each. A really nice effect and a really good use of the iPhone format. This is one from us. This is our sales enablement page. So you can see again on our iPad we've created 2 columns here, and we've also done a snap page to go from one to another, again using the 2 columns. For our iPhone, we've just done a single column, and we've, instead of being snap pages, turns out the content is better as a smooth scrolling. In this case, that might be 5 snap pages, which wouldn't exactly flow as nicely. So you might find that having a tall page, smooth scrolling like this is the best way to go for long contents. So I'll just jump back into my little presentation here. So that leads me to the training bundle that we offer. Obviously, there's only so much we can fit into one webinar, but we're really excited for you guys to start using this, start using the iPhone, the Oomph for iPhone. There's so much you can do, and it's really fun, and it's really kind of interesting to see users with your content on the iPhone. It's a really kind of delightful, really, thing to see, and you can really do a lot of different things on the iPhone that wouldn't really be appropriate for the iPad. So this is our little bundle that we're offering. So we'll come through. It's a 4-hour session for $4.99, and we'll come through and we'll go through the more smaller details of iOS 7 and how to set up that in a more sort of technical aspect. Go over tips and tricks, what kind of content you should put is best on the iPhone, user experience. Obviously, you want to set things up differently on the iPhone to the iPad in a way that the user will come to expect and understand. And also setting up your home page for the iPhone. And if you haven't seen the home page already, this is a new feature to iOS 7. So this is the page that you can set up in your app, and it's a HTML-based page. And what it is really is anything you can or want it to be. And so this, in this case, we're promoting issues in the app. So, and there's obviously, if I click on this, this will link to the actual issue and start downloading it. So you can promote certain pages in your issues. In a new issue, you can highlight past issues if there's a recurring topic, and really drive more downloads, more page impressions this way. It's a really good way to quickly call out one defining or interesting promotional piece in your issues of your app. Also, for all of our attendees, we'll be releasing a little starter pack to help you get going. We're going to include some InDesign templates. Obviously, it's different sizes as we've looked at, so offering templates to help you set those up with guides and all this sort of things to be aware of it. And then we're going to release iPhone mockups. If you're doing any pitches to clients or anything like that, or in internal meetings, you can kind of show, what this is going to look like without having to go too far down the interactive road, or any promotionals for that matter. And then we'll give away an Oomph for iPhone cheat sheet, so all the little checklist of things and features to consider when creating your app. So that comes to the end of my content, my presentation, and at this point we can start taking on some questions if there are any. So font size, I believe we have a question on that. So the funny thing about the iPhone is that because it's so high in its resolution, the height is actually bigger than the iPad, but the device itself is smaller. It can make font size difficult to pick. However, saying that, you also hold the iPhone closer to your face. So if you really need to, you can get away with quite small text, as some apps do. You can more than you can on the iPad, but in saying that, for a minimum, as a standard minimum, you might want to look at 18 point. what way? Okay. So a question from Judith, wanting to go over again what happens, the difference between the 4-inch and the 3.5-inch displays. So basically, I'll go back to the page. An illustration might be the best way to go about this. So here you can see I have a 4-inch display. My simulator is simulating a 4-inch device. The 4-inch devices include the iPhone 5C, the iPhone 5S, and the iPhone 5. Everything below that is a 3.5-inch device. So my solid green area, depicted in here, that's what will be shown on the 3.5-inch device, and everything underneath that area is going to be viewable on a scroll. So you can just do a smooth scroll, and that extra area that is not available to see on a 3.5-inch will now be visible just by scrolling down. And obviously, if you have a tall page, that scroll will just continue on. Yeah. So we do recommend that anything you must have your users see, it's best not to put it in that area. So that includes interactive elements like a nav, like we have it up here, or page indication to scroll down like here. It's best not to have them in there, just like it's best not to have must-see content further past 1 or 2 for a tall page on the iPad. Does that answer your question? Okay. We have another question here. What is the cost of adding an iPhone version to my iPad version of CycleTalk? Now, I believe, and Erica will correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the iPhone app comes with the iPad. So if you have an iPad app, you will get the iPhone one as well. So the hosting is free. The setup is $2,500. And we will send out a pack to all of our attendees going into details about costings. We have another question. Do you have page templates we can download? From Judith Love, and the answer to that is yes, we will be releasing after this templates that you can download for iPhone, and that'll go through 4-inch and 3.5-inch templates. So with there's another question about setting different price points for iPhone and iPad, and I believe because it's a universal app, it is the same price. So whatever the cost is of your iPhone, your iPad will also be the same cost. Although I'm not too sure about issue cost. Okay. So apparently issue cost is also the same across the 2 apps. So in regards to the publishing process, it's exactly the same. So you do it through Publish, and now what you'll see if you have an iPhone app in your build, you will see a section to upload an iPhone issue. So everything else is exactly the same. And I can show you here. We have a little side menu here. It's a little hamburger icon in our UI, and there'll be an option for preparing for publishing. So yes, it's exactly the same as the iPad. We've gone to great lengths to make sure it's a really consistent experience between iPhone and the iPad. I suppose that's really, so I have a question here. From a UX perspective, will the user get annoyed if I make a really long VIPS? I guess that depends on how long is really long. You know, I think depending on the content, I've found from creating content myself to using content, a real long VIPS or a tall page, a really long tall page is not annoying in a way. It feels quite natural. The same goes for a web, like a web website or a responsive website. A lot of the time, content, especially if it's a blog, it's really long. So even as far as 8,000 pixels, your page size being that tall, it actually goes by pretty quick. And I've never personally had an experience where I felt, geez, this page is really long. And I guess it depends what your content is exactly. You know, you might have a really long image, and that might get a little bit boring. But if the content is good, and I'm sure it is, users, in my experience so far, have stuck with it. So there's another question about purchasing an issue on an iPad. Do you get it on the iPhone? You don't have to pay. So if you pay for an issue on the iPad, you won't have to pay for it on the iPhone. So the user can pay for one issue on the iPad, read it on their iPad, and then if they want to, they can switch over to their iPhone and read it on there. They will have to obviously download the issue onto both devices. So the limit isn't 8,000. So there's a question, is 8,000 pixels the limit to a tall page? We have long form articles. So the limit is not 8,000 pixels. There is a limit though. InDesign does have a limit of, I believe, something like 15,500 pixels, something around there. And if you have really long content, this can be a problem. However, there is a solution that works perfectly, and I have done in the past. What you can do is you can design your iPhone content in half scale. So the iPhone dimensions are 640 by 1136. So what you can do is you can half that, so it's half the size, and put all your content in there, and then you basically get double. If you want a tall page, you're then allowed for it to be twice as long. Oomph can handle this quite well, obviously, because if you have PDF-based content, all your text is just going to be scaled up, and it's going to display perfectly in its perfect resolution. With images, you might, as I said, half the document size in InDesign, but then you might just, to make sure your images are exporting as crisp as you want, you might double your export resolution, your PPI. So if you're usually exporting at 72 or 132 for just the native resolution, you might want to double that, but at the same time half your document size. Does that make sense? So there's another question here. Any tips for setting up a good navigation? So as you can kind of see, there's not a whole lot of space on the iPhone for navigation. So usually you'd want something fairly non-obtrusive. What you can use, which is true also for the iPad, is the built-in contents in our UI, which is obviously quite out of the way. So you do a tap to bring it up, and then you can bring up the contents. And this does a really good job for helping the user find content. Obviously, they can search or they can just browse through each article. This takes up the whole screen. It completely covers up your content, so you get maximum view of finding what you're looking for. Otherwise, you can do what Cosmopolitan have done here and do a search widget. That's always a good idea. As far as having like a menu on the page, you'd want to stick to probably, depending on what your content is, a drop-down menu, something like an object that comes in and out of the screen that you can quickly get out of the way. And that's probably always going to be at the top of the screen to avoid people missing it. So there's another question. Will bookmarks sync between iPad and iPhone? Currently, no, they won't. Bookmarks now are called favorites. So I'll show you how that works. I can add certain pages here. I can share them to my collection. I can just choose this one. I'll go ahead and choose another page for it. To collection on that one. And then instead of bookmarks, we have our little favorites tab in the library view. And what this essentially does is this creates a whole new bundle. It's like creating your own magazine. And this will then show those two pages that you saved to this favorite. And this is unique to the iPad or the iPhone. So you can have a different one on your iPad than you would on your iPhone. So there's another question. How did the Mad Week contents work when the user rotates the device contents launch? So at that point, we actually wanted to create a custom user experience. I can show you the same thing will happen in Cosmo. So as I showed before, you have your content in portrait, but then when you flip it to landscape, what it does is you can still scroll, but now you're seeing a two-column view. So it works for both portrait and landscape. The Mad Week content was a little bit different in that we made our own in this case. So when the user flips their device sideways, they actually get a panning IPS, in which they can see the content. So then, effectively, they had two options to navigate. So there's another question. If we already have an iPad app, we can create an iPhone version. Do we just create a new app in Publish alongside the iPad one? So no, in Publish, you can just go to your app, go inside, and you'll see each issue. So it might be November, December, January. And if you go, for example, inside December and open that up, you'll see iPad version, upload, and you'll see iPhone version, upload. So it's not two different apps in Publish, it's two different versions within each issue of your app in Publish. So Tony has asked, if I search on Cosmopolitan on iTunes, I see a version under iPhone apps and under iPad apps with the same name. Is there anything special we have to do when publishing the app to be able to have it identified as both iPad/iPhone? So you choose to have both options included when you build the app, essentially. So when the app is built to accommodate for iPad and iPhone, you'll be able to choose, obviously, that it is for both. And then I suppose when you search iTunes, it will come up. So there's nothing special. It's just when you build the app. And if you build it yourself, you'll see the option. If you have an account manager building it for you, you can just tell them that it's for both, and then they'll include that. So a question from Troy, really like, how do you set up the Mad Week? Maybe just clarify which part of Mad Week, and I'll answer that one. Is it the contents page? Is it the speaker page? Got quite a few questions here, so I'm just trying to get through all of them. So the question, does the iPhone app have to have a different name from the iPad one that's already published? As far as I know, I believe they're the same name. I might clarify that in a follow-up email after this webinar. Oh, sorry. So last one was about Mad Week, was not a question. But thank you. Yes, I try and put every effort into apps I create, especially that Mad Week one was my first iPhone app. So I got really excited, and I think when you do create content for iPhone, you do get a little bit giddy, and you just have fun, and it's kind of fun to see your content on a smartphone. Kind of brings you back to when you first made content for the iPad. So I have another question. So I have an existing iPad app, Experience the Highs, an existing iPhone app, Experience the Highs 360. As it is now possible to combine them both, what is the best way to go about this? For this question, what will be best is if I get a really solid answer for you, and I'll put this as a part of the send out email to all the attendees after the webinar. It's a good question though. If you had two separate apps and you want to combine them, what's the best way to go about that? And we'll find some answers for you. Judith asks, how is standard navigation disabled? I'm not too sure of this one either. I might have to get back to you. But apparently you can disable the standard navigation. I'm assuming when you build the app. So I have a question here from Eugene, and he asks, so when downloading an iPad app from the App Store, will it automatically download the iPhone version to an iPhone using the same App Store account? This depends on your iPad and iPhone settings. So within settings, I believe it'll be under iCloud settings, maybe iTunes settings. But what you can do is you can have it set up where if you have two devices where, well, actually multiple devices set up on the same account, whatever you download on one, it'll be downloaded on all of them. That's not a setting within Oomph. That's a setting within the iPad or iPhone settings. I might be able to find that real quick too. So we have another question. How do you customize the colors in the standard nav from Troy? So when you build the app, you can choose a hex color value to make your own icons. And you can just give that hex value to your account manager. And this hex value color is applied throughout the app. It's called the app tint. So it's all kind of UI related things you can see here. In my view, I have library is colored in orange, edit, and my icons. All those sort of highlighting colors are from a customizable tint that you can apply throughout your app, so you can really make it feel like it's part of your brand. We have a question from Judith. Will pinch and zoom be standard with iPhone app? And the answer is yes. You can choose to turn it on or off depending on your content. And I believe this is issue based. So if you want one issue to be pinch and zoomable, you can. If you want another one not to be, you can also do that. Another question from Judith about the setup fee. What is the 2,500 for? And we can explain that in the follow-up email as well. So we have a question from Tony. It says in publish under iPhone versions, if no iPhone versions are uploaded, iPad versions will be served to all devices. Does this mean that any new iOS builds will work and be available on both iPad and iPhone? And the answer to that is yes, but you'll have to turn it on when you build app. So in building, there'll be a setting whether you prefer this or not. So if that's all the questions we have for today, might stop it there. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. Look forward to our follow-up email and for our resource giveaway. Also contact us if you're interested in knowing and learning more. The training bundle is available, so just give us a call or email us, and we'll be happy to slot in a time for you to start building some really cool iPhone content. All right, good luck. As I said, you can start building iPhone apps from today. The iPhone viewer for the iPhone will be available either today or in the coming days. Anytime from now, it should be coming live, so you can, in fact, test and play with content on there that you already have. So yeah, thank you very much for coming, and we will look forward to seeing you in future webinars. Visit our website, oomphq.com/webinars to check what's upcoming.